Welcome into the CinemaLit podcast. Here's what happened this week in a movie TV world. A new trailer has released for the George Clooney directed Suburbicon, which comes out October 27th, starring Matt Damon, Julianne Moore, and Oscar Isaac. The synopsis goes as follows. Suburbicon is a peaceful, idyllic suburban community with affordable homes and manicured lawns. The perfect place to raise a family, and in the summer of 1959, the Lodge family is doing just that. But the tranquil surface masks a disturbing reality as husband and father Gardner Lodge, who's played by Matt Damon, must navigate the town's dark underbelly of betrayal, deceit, and violence. This is a tale of very flawed people making very bad decisions. This is Suburbicon. I thought it was a good trailer. This was the UK trailer, which was a little different, but I saw the US trailer too. And honestly, it looks kind of like a dystopia movie because, the supposed perfect 50s American suburban neighborhood, which kind of was marketed as the American dream with, the white picket fence and, the family dog and everything. And so it kind of looks like a dystopia. It is a dark comedy written by the Coen brothers, which is pretty cool if you, look at their other movies like Burn After Reading, A Serious Man, and The Big Lebowski, which all kind of have these very twisted senses of humor. But it's not directed by the Coen brothers, which is kind of a letdown, but it's still in capable hands with George Clooney, and I think, he'll do a pretty good job. I mean, I think he's an above average director. He's not at the same caliber as the Coen brothers. I think he's directed 5 movies. He's made 1 great movie, Good Night and Good Luck. He's made 2 good movies, Ides of March and Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, and 1 kind of meh movie with Leatherheads, and a below average, almost bad movie with Monuments Men. But I think I'm confident he'll do a good job because I think he's really trying to rebound from Monuments Men and how that did both financially and critically. So, it looks good. Definitely going to wait for reviews, but I do want to see Suburbicon. Spoilers ahead for M. Night Shyamalan's film Split. Skip ahead to the 5-minute, 5-second mark if you don't want to be spoiled. You have been warned. Universal has released the official synopsis for Glass, which teases the culmination of M. Night Shyamalan's Split and Unbreakable series. And the synopsis, following the conclusion of Split, Glass finds David Dunn pursuing Kevin Wendell Crumb's superhuman figure of the Beast in a series of escalating encounters while the shadowy presence of Price, that's Elijah Price, emerges as an orchestrator who holds secrets critical to both men. Filming actually begins next month for Glass, but actually the movie won't be released until January 18th, 2019. And Glass will star Bruce Willis, Samuel L. Jackson, James McAvoy, and Anya Taylor-Joy. I'm pretty excited for Glass because this entire Unbreakable series is pretty unconventional because the first movie came out back in 2000 and it was a $75 million movie, and it was kind of it was a conventional superhero type origin story, but the way they presented the superheroes were very unconventional. It was kind of this realistic take, but it, like Split did, it takes advantage of the January dumping ground because Split made $276 million on a $9 million budget because it was the only really good movie out for like 4 weeks in a row because all these terrible movies came out in January. It's already been released that the movie will have a more conventional budget than Split. Split had a $9 million budget because it was a Blumhouse movie, and Blumhouse really only produces those micro-budget horror movies. But I don't think it will have the $75 million budget that Unbreakable had. I don't think they're willing to put that much money into it because it's a co-production between Universal and Blumhouse. I know M. Night Shyamalan actually had a 15-page outline for this script before Split was even released. So he had an outline for Glass, so it probably wasn't a super lengthy process in order to write the screenplay. But this movie, Glass, could be the grand culmination of Shyamalan's comeback. Not only the series, but his comeback, because he had The Visit with Blumhouse, which made I think $120 million or maybe it was $150 million on like a $5 million budget, and that was with Blumhouse. Then he had Split, which did almost $300 million, and these movies were pretty well reviewed as well. Not amazingly well reviewed. This, and then Glass, that could put him back on the A-list. He once was on the A-list after he came out with Sixth Sense and Signs and Unbreakable. He was up there, and then he just directed a bunch of terrible movies like The Happening, The Last Airbender and all that, but this could put him back in the A-list if he comes through with Glass. Captain Phillips and Bourne Ultimatum director Paul Greengrass to direct Netflix film about 2011 Norwegian terrorist attack that killed 77 people. The film will have a $20 million budget and will film in Norway this fall with local actors. I gotta say, I have mixed feelings about this. I do like that the movie will be filmed with Norwegian actors instead of using like big Hollywood names to sell the movie. I'm really am not a fan of seeing movies with like American actors based on true events, American actors playing, some other nationality and they can't even really do the accent very well. But the reason why I'm not super psyched about this is that I'm not super into when they make a movie about a terrorist attack like less than 10 years after the movie in order to capitalize on possible box office or awards buzz. And I'm sure it'll be really good and it'll be really respectful to the victims because Paul Greengrass is one of the best directors working today, and, he directed United 93 about the 9/11 attacks with great conviction while honoring those victims, and I'm sure he's going to do the same here. It's been 6 years. Maybe that's the appropriate amount of time, but I don't know. It could be too soon. Who knows? It could suffer because it's so soon. I know that Patriots Day didn't make a lot of money, and that was 3.5 years after the Boston Marathon attacks. So we'll see. I'm sure it'll be really good. It's going to come out on Netflix sometime, but probably 2018. Stranger Things director Rebecca Thomas will direct a sci-fi film called Intelligent Life that will be produced by Steven Spielberg's Amblin Entertainment. She will direct the upcoming episode The Secret Cabin for the season 2 of Stranger Things. She'll also rewrite the screenplay, which was actually originally written by Colin Trevorrow and Derek Connolly, who wrote Jurassic World. So I'm kind of glad she's rewriting that because probably the biggest weakness of Jurassic World was its writing. The premise centers on a United Nations employee who monitors outer space and makes contact with a beautiful woman who may be an alien. There's no release date for the movie, and she's also actually attached to 2 other movies, Universal's Little Mermaid movie, and she's supposed to adapt the John Green novel Looking for Alaska. So honestly, this movie could come out in the next 2 years. It might not come out for 6 or 7 years, because maybe she'll direct those other 2 movies before. So far, she only has 1 movie under her belt, Electric Children, which has an 86% on Rotten Tomatoes. So it seems like she's a pretty capable director. It'll be interesting what she does with this movie, Intelligent Life. It looks like she's trying to put herself in that sci-fi world with Stranger Things coming up this year. So I don't know, she's directed a good feature film. You're adding talent, you're putting talent on a film. I know they originally had Ava DuVernay attached to this. This is a bit of a downgrade from Ava DuVernay, but almost every other director would be a downgrade from Ava DuVernay. But this is still a step in the right direction. Netflix orders Season 3 of Stranger Things 2 months before Season 2 even debuts, which isn't really surprising because Stranger Things is the only Netflix-produced or Netflix-owned hit show on their streaming service. The creators of the show, the Duffer Brothers, they've actually talked about Season 4 kind of being the last of the series. And back at the end of Season 1, they said they kind of know where they want the show to go and they see it ending around Season 4. And I always think that when there's a plan to end a series at a certain season, that's always a good sign because they know how far they want to go. They know the stories they want to tell. And I think that brings about more cohesive storytelling. With Breaking Bad, it was going to be that Season 5, that's where it was going to end. With Game of Thrones, it's going to be Season 8 next year. So that's a good sign that they know where they want to end it. I still kind of wish it was an anthology show. That's what I initially thought it was going to be. Last year was just, hey, one season they're going to go to these different places, these different time periods where these weird sci-fi, experiments and stuff are going on. And it still could be an anthology type show. Netflix retains the rights, I'm pretty sure, so they can probably put something else in development under the Stranger Things title. But as far as Stranger Things goes in general, I was never a huge Stranger Things fan. I think it's a good show, and I'm definitely going to watch Season 2. But I definitely did not get caught up in the hype and everything, and it was this phenomenon. I didn't really get caught up in that. I thought it was a good, solid show, just not one of the best shows I've ever seen. But it's interesting that they've already ordered Season 3 before Season 2 has started. It, which opens September 8th, is actually tracking to make $50 million in its opening weekend, and possibly upwards of $60 million if it has a lot of positive buzz around it. and it could replace Hotel Transylvania 2 as the highest grossing opening weekend for a September release. If it's good, I do hope it beats the Hotel Transylvania movies for the highest grossing opening weekend, if it's good. I'm kind of nervous it might not be because Cary Fukunaga, who directed Beasts of No Nation, and he also directed the first season of True Detective, he was the original director, and then he ended up signing off due to delays and kind of creative differences, and he was replaced by Andres Muschietti, who directed Mama, and that's his only directorial credit. And he's competent, but he's definitely not as good as Cary Fukunaga. I know Fukunaga does have a writing credit on the movie, but, who knows what that means because that script's been rewritten a bunch. But I'm also kind of nervous because Stephen King wasn't involved at all in the production of the movie, and that was kind of planned, is that the studio didn't want him involved. But if it's good, I do hope it has that record for the September highest grossing weekend, but it's in theaters September 8th. Some new details have surfaced on Netflix's MillarWorld deal. A couple weeks ago, they bought MillarWorld, which was a bunch of comic book IP that was co-owned by Mark Millar. And it's rumored to be a $30 to $50 million acquisition, which is kind of interesting because Netflix has paid comedians like Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock and Jerry Seinfeld like $50 or $60 million for stand-up specials. It's like they pay Chris Rock $60 million for 2 stand-up specials, and they pay probably less money to acquire a company. Netflix will not own titles like Kick-Ass, Wanted, or Kingsman because they have gone to other studios like Universal and 20th Century Fox. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Netflix can mine Miller properties like Reborn, a drama that suggests that the afterlife brings you into a war alongside those you knew when you were alive, and MPH, Miles per Hour, about speedy teens in rundown Detroit. The crown jewel may be Jupiter's Legacy, featuring multi-generational hero stories, which could lend itself to cinematic universe treatment. I think this could be super refreshing and unique to see a comic book universe or a graphic novel universe of brand new ideas that most people, most casual movie fans or moviegoers, casual audiences have never even heard of before, especially considering we see the same characters, the same comic book characters every 2 to 3 years. Batman, Superman, Iron Man, Captain America. We see those same characters every 2 to 3 years now. Now to see this whole other world of people you haven't even heard of. But I definitely think with these shows or movies, Netflix is going to go all in. They're going to put as much money as they can into MillarWorld because it's now a Netflix-owned property, and they're going to produce all of that content. And that's what they need, is they need more owned shows or to put on their streaming service. And this is the first big step. DC is developing a Joker origin story movie with Todd Phillips, Scott Silver, and Martin Scorsese. The film is intended to launch a yet-to-be-named new banner at Warner Brothers, which will expand the universe of DC films to create new storylines with different actors playing the beloved characters. I'm honestly not sure how to feel about this. My gut instinct is to be totally against this because, one, it has nothing to do with the DC EU currently as it is. Jared Leto isn't going to play Joker. They're going to get someone younger to play Joker. I really, Warner Brothers they've put a lot of time into their cinematic universe, and now they're just going to release these movies outside of that universe, and I feel like it's going to confuse a lot of audiences. There was another quote saying they wanted it to be a hard-boiled 80s crime film like Scorsese's films back in the day, but it's not going to be like Scorsese's movies. Martin Scorsese is going to be an executive producer, which basically just means they're going to put his name on it and then he'll get a check. I really don't know how much creative control he's going to have because he's executive produced some pretty bad movies. I don't really care if he's credited as an executive producer. I don't think it means that much. But it's going to be directed by Todd Phillips, who did The Hangover, and he also did War Dogs, which I heard was pretty good. I haven't seen it. But it's going to be written by Scott Silver, who wrote The Fighter. And I like The Fighter. That's a good movie. I think that's like the one shred of hope I have with this story. But I don't really know where they're trying to go with this. I just think it's really confusing, or it's a cash grab, or maybe it's like this long-rumored idea that they're just going to reboot the entire universe and they're going to do some Flashpoint storyline. So, honestly, until this actually becomes tangible, I don't even think it's really going to happen. Less than 24 hours after announcing a Joker origin movie, DC has announced a Joker and Harley Quinn movie that is going to move forward with the directors of Focus. Glenn Ficarra and John Requa, who also directed Crazy Stupid Love and Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, will direct this Joker Harley Quinn movie. I mean, I don't even... this pisses me off because DC, they've announced all these movies one day after announcing a Joker origin movie that's not going to take place inside the DCEU, but it's gonna take place outside of this world. And then now they announce this, and it's like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't because you're gonna confuse a bunch of audiences. And I think honestly they're just announcing a bunch of movies just to see what kind of reaction these movies get online or something. Because honestly, they've announced a Green Lantern Corps movie, a Cyborg movie, a Flash movie called Flashpoint. They've announced a Nightwing movie. They've announced a Black Adam movie with The Rock. They've announced a Man of Steel sequel and Batgirl. All those movies don't have release dates. Oh, they've also announced a Suicide Squad 2 movie, a Batman solo movie. Those don't have release dates. In the Batman solo movie, Matt Reeves came out and said that movie's not going to take place inside the DCEU either. It's not going to take place inside the connected universe. It's just going to be separate. And, a Shazam movie has been announced. There's a release date for 2019, but there's no actor attached to play Shazam, and they're supposed to go into production early next year. And David F. Sandberg, who directed Lights Out and Annabelle Creation, is supposed to direct that. I mean, this Joker Harley Quinn movie, it could be alright, but it's going to be detrimental if it gets made along with that Joker origin movie, because you're just going to confuse people. That's what it's going to do at the end of the day. It's just going to confuse people. Film studios could be moving towards a $30 premium video-on-demand service early next year. Comcast, Apple, and Amazon are working on a delivery system to bring new release films home 30 to 45 days after they've been released for the cost of $30 a rental. The three companies are also currently working out anti-piracy measures, and, quote, a number of platforms, including the other major cable providers and digital players, will ultimately be a part of PVOD as well, since the goal is to saturate the marketplace. From the reports, it says that they need at least 3 studios, and they're already ruling out Disney, because if Disney wanted to be part of the premium video-on-demand game, they would have their own PVOD service for their own movies, just like the way they're doing their own streaming service and taking their movies off of Netflix. Universal is the most likely to be involved since Comcast is the studio's parent company, so that leaves 20th Century Fox, Warner Brothers, Lionsgate, and Paramount. Premium video on demand, it's gonna happen eventually, just because that's where consumers are going, is they just want to stay home. It's gonna happen eventually, but the report states that it could happen as early as January or February 2018. And it makes sense. People do not want to go to the movie theater anymore. They don't want to pay crazy prices for whatever's at the concessions. They don't want to pay $12 to $18 to go see a movie where people are on their phone, people are talking during the movie, people are, kicking like the back of people's chairs or whatever. They want to do it in the comfortability of their own home, which is understandable with, streaming services like Netflix, like Amazon, where you can do that at home, or current video on demand movies for the lower budget movies. A couple questions though is, how long will this rental be for? I know there are some rentals that last 48 hours. I know there are some that last 24 hours. And would this deal with the studios, would this affect distribution deals with movie theater chains? That's another question. But a $30 rental 30 to 45 days after a movie's been released, it's a pretty good deal. Plus, if you're watching it with like 6 other people, that's $5 a person. It works out pretty well, but it'll be interesting to see how this develops over the next 6 to probably 18 months. So Channing Tatum says that the Gambit solo movie is being rewritten due to the success of Deadpool and Logan. So let me just start off by giving you a timeline of what happened here. Channing Tatum was announced as Gambit in October 2014, and they announced a date of October 7th, 2016 for the Gambit movie, a release date, with Rupert Wyatt attached as director. Okay, there was even he even appeared in a photo shoot with a bunch of X-Men cast members. He was there at Comic-Con and took a picture on the stage with them and everything. And then there were reports, the projected budget was reported to be $154 million. And then almost immediately after that, Deadpool trailers started to pop up because of Comic-Con. And Deadpool started to get a ton of buzz and press. Filming for Gambit was supposed to start in October 2015, But the director, Rupert Wyatt, who actually directed the first, he directed Rise of the Planet of the Apes, he left due to scheduling conflicts. In November 2015, Doug Liman signed on to direct the movie, but the release date hadn't changed. They were still aiming for that October 2016 release date. Once Deadpool came out and started making tons of money on only a $58 million budget compared to what Gambit was going to be a $150 million budget. Once Deadpool started to make a ton of money, Fox began to basically reevaluate Gambit as a movie, and they delayed it. So since that was delayed, the new director that signed on, Doug Liman, left the movie. So if you fast forward to today, Tatum's basically saying, okay, the movie's being rewritten, da-da-da-da. So I'm wondering, does this mean that Gambit's going to have a lower budget, and will it be rated R, and will it be lumped in with Deadpool 2 and Cable and X Factor and all these rated R X-Men movies they're trying to make? And I kind of hope so. I mean, Gambit as a character, he's not that interesting of a character. He's cool. It's like the classic style over substance, but he was always seen as redundant because he's like this tortured kind of soul. He was once a bad guy. He's kind of an anti-hero type of guy, and that's basically a role that's filled by Wolverine. But I don't know, Channing Tatum basically said because those movies were so successful, now they can write the script the way they want to. Alright, I didn't really want to talk about this, but it's been getting a lot of traction. So James Cameron and Patty Jenkins had this spat over Wonder Woman. James Cameron said, all of the self-congratulatory backpatting Hollywood's been doing over Wonder Woman has been so misguided. She's an objectified icon, and it's just male Hollywood doing the same old thing. I'm not saying I didn't like the movie, but to me, it's a step backwards. Sarah Connor was not a beauty icon. She was strong, she was troubled, she was a terrible mother, and she earned the respect of the audience through pure grit. And to me, the benefit of characters like Sarah is so obvious. I mean, half the audience is female. So, a couple days later, Patty Jenkins, the woman who directed Wonder Woman, responded, James Cameron's inability to understand what Wonder Woman is or stands for to women all over the world is unsurprising, as though he's a great filmmaker, he is not a woman. Strong women are great. His praise of my film Monster and our portrayal of strong yet damaged women was so appreciated. But if women have to always be hard, tough, and troubled to be strong, and we aren't free to be multidimensional or celebrate an icon of women everywhere because she is attractive and loving, then we haven't come very far, have we? I believe women can and should be everything, just like male lead characters should be. There is no right and wrong kind of powerful woman, and the massive female audience who made the film a hit can surely choose and judge their own icons of progress. I mean, James Cameron seems kind of embarrassed or butthurt by the fact that he didn't make Wonder Woman, because he's bringing up Terminator 2. He's like, oh, Sarah Connor was like this, and it's like, well, dude, we're not talking about your movie. But his idea that Wonder Woman is objectified, I mean, sure, that's true, but that's not really news because every comic book hero is objectified. I mean, how many shirtless shots of Thor, Captain America, and Superman do you see in their movies? Every comic book character, every comic book hero or main character is always chiseled and looks amazing. And actually, what's interesting is in Wonder Woman, Patty Jenkins made a point to have no ass shots or cleavage shots of in Wonder Woman. But I mean, I agree with Patty Jenkins. Not every character has to be super hard and tough and go through hell in order to be seen as strong. A good character, male or female, does have to struggle with conflict in their lives, whether that be physical or mental. However, I do disagree with Patty Jenkins about having, you don't have to be a woman to understand why strong female characters are a good thing. You can be male and still understand, having female characters, representation, that's a good thing to have in a movie. The way she kind of said it, and I'm sure she would rephrase this, but the way she kind of responded to James Cameron made it seem like, oh, well, he's not a woman, so he doesn't get it. Well, that's a little off base. The first trailer released for Richard Linklater's new movie, Last Flag Flying. 2003, 30 years after they served together in the Vietnam War, former Navy Corps medic Larry Doc Shepard, played by Steve Carell, reunites with ex-Marine Sal Nealon, who's played by Bryan Cranston, and Reverend Richard Mueller, played by Lawrence Fishburne, on a different type of mission to bury Doc's son, a young Marine killed in the Iraq War. Doc decides to forego burial at Arlington Cemetery and, with the help of his old buddies, takes the casket on a bittersweet trip up the East Coast to his home in suburban New Hampshire. Along the way, Doc, Sal, and Mueller reminisce and come to terms with shared memories of the war that continues to shape their lives. Looks great, which isn't really surprising seeing that it's Richard Linklater, but it's going to be a drama with a lot of comedic elements. It's definitely not a comedy drama, but the comedic elements are kind of like a laugh so you don't cry type of attitude. Just kind of, these guys kind of picking each other up in the wake of this tragedy. And, you got these two great comedic actors in Steve Carell and Bryan Cranston. And it's interesting because in an interview a while back, I know Bryan Cranston, they were talking about how they were talking about Breaking Bad and how his performance is so great and how did he approach it with him being naturally a comedic actor. He basically said that comedic timing is actually more difficult than dramatic timing because all that acting is about timing it so everything feels natural. And Bryan Cranston was just like, it's just not that hard because it's just about getting everything right timing wise. But I think Richard Linklater, he always does a great job of making you feel as though you're in the same room with his characters. I know he had his movie that released last year, Everybody Wants Some, about this college baseball team the weekend before a semester starts. You definitely feel like you're with the baseball team, and I remember watching it. You feel so much like you're with them that you're only there with them that weekend, and it's almost like, wow, you actually want to experience the school year and the season with them. But whenever this comes out, I'm pretty sure this comes out this fall. It's gonna be nominated for a ton of awards probably, and I'm probably gonna be in line to see it. So this week, the Conjuring film series crossed $1 billion worldwide, which is pretty insane considering it's only 4 movies in, and it's on a combined budget of $81.5 million from all 4 films. $81 million. That is a third of basically your average Marvel movie. But for comparison, the Saw franchise, which James Wan, who directed Conjuring, James Wan directed the first Saw. The Saw franchise has 7 movies and is still $125 million short of the Conjuring film series. Okay, there's upcoming spin-offs, The Nun and The Crooked Man, which are from The Conjuring 2. There will eventually be a Conjuring 3 once James Wan is done directing Aquaman. But it's interesting because James Wan, he had Saw, and he made money from all the Saw, sequels. Even though he didn't direct those, it's still his property, so he made money off of that. But ever since 2007, he directed these 2 films, Dead Silence and Death Sentence. And both of them were pretty critically derided. And he basically admitted that he didn't have a lot of control. Studios did a lot of the rewrites. They interfered a lot. So after that, he actually went to Blumhouse and to have more creative control with lower budgets. So he directed Insidious. That's how Insidious came about. And I'm pretty sure he did Chapter 2 as well. And those made insane money compared to their budgets. I think the first Insidious made like $103 million on a $1.5 million budget, and he made money from there. So then he kind of dipped into blockbuster filmmaking with Furious 7, because Justin Lin couldn't direct Fast and Furious 7, so they got James Wan to do it. And supposedly he was paid a pretty good amount, but he didn't come back for a sequel, even though he was allegedly offered like $30 or $40 million to direct it. But now he's directing Aquaman for Warner Brothers. And now he is also a producer, copying that Blumhouse model, what they did with Insidious, with these ultra low budget horror movies. Because he produced Annabelle, which was $6.5 million. Then he produced Lights Out, which was I think $4.5 or $5 million, and that made like $175 million from that director David F. Sandberg. But then he kind of brought David F. Sandberg into his family a little bit, because now Sandberg is directing, he just directed Annabelle Creation, and now Sandberg's going to direct the Shazam movie for Warner Brothers. So it's definitely interesting how James Wan just kind of, he basically saw the studio system and he just rose through the ranks, and he's kind of the name in horror. The 2 movies I want to recommend this week kind of go hand in hand a little bit, because they're both led by Leonardo DiCaprio, and they both have to do with Pan American Airlines in a little bit, and they're both biopics. So the first movie is Catch Me If You Can, which is based on the life of Frank Abagnale, who before his 19th birthday successfully performed cons worth millions of dollars by posing as a Pan American World Airways pilot, a Georgia doctor, and a Louisiana parish prosecutor. And what's great about this movie is it switches between DiCaprio as Frank Abagnale, this con man, and Tom Hanks as FBI agent Carl Hanratty. and both of them are really fantastic, and there isn't a letdown when you switch between characters. So like in some movies, and this is kind of the case with like Lord of the Rings, but when you switch between two storylines, you kind of favor one and you're like, okay, let's get back to the other guys because that's more fun. But that's not the case here. When you switch between both, like they're both as interesting as each other. And another crazy thing is that this movie is 2 hours and 22 minutes, but it's incredibly light on its feet. Like the movie just moves, and it's actually a lot of fun. The second movie I want to recommend is The Aviator, which the film depicts the life of Howard Hughes, an aviation pioneer and director of Hell's Angels. The film portrays his life from 1927 to 1947, during which time Hughes became a successful film producer and an aviation magnate, while simultaneously growing more unstable due to severe obsessive-compulsive disorder. The guy at the center of the story, Howard Hughes, he was actually the guy, he made the first ever Hollywood blockbuster, and he actually prevented a commercial air travel monopoly by Pan American Airlines. But you also get to see his romantic life with these Hollywood starlets like Katharine Hepburn, who's played by Cate Blanchett, who actually won an Academy Award for the role, and Ava Gardner. This is probably my favorite Martin Scorsese movie. I will acknowledge that Goodfellas is a better movie, but I just like this movie more. And to be fair, I haven't seen Raging Bull or Mean Streets yet. But, I mean, I remember when I was younger, when I was probably 8 or 9, my dad actually had this movie and he was playing it one day and I was really bored by it, to be honest. But then during my junior year of high school, it was like towards the end of the year and it was on TV and I decided to watch it because I remember hearing about it, but I figured I'd give it a chance, and I probably watched it every day that week. It was, my God, it's so good. It's a little long. It's 2 hours and 45 minutes, but like Catch Me If You Can, it flies by. It's so good. Everyone in the movie is so good. There are moments that will make you smile. There's this moment on a plane. He's teaching Katharine Hepburn how to fly a plane, and they're playing this Benny Goodman song in the background. It's my favorite moment of the movie. It's probably one of my favorite moments in any movie, but it's amazing. It's such a good movie. I couldn't recommend it more. If you want to get in touch with Cinema Literature and ask us questions about some of your favorite movies, upcoming films, or what goes into making a movie, feel free to comment on our YouTube channel or on our website, cinemalit.weebly.com. You can also email us at cinemalit52814@gmail.com. If you want to keep up with the podcast, rate, review, and subscribe to Cinema Literature on iTunes. Like us on YouTube and follow us on Twitter, simply @CinemaLit. Peace.